Are we ready, Steve? So we'll call to order the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority Finance Committee meeting for Thursday, July 28th, 2022. And our business for today is to review the June financials. And I would ask Patty to do a summary and give us a review. The only one that continues to perplex me a little bit, the only item on there is on the P&L, the relationship between expenses and sales on airport fuel. I wonder if you could review for me what's going on.
Okay. Well, we'll start with the statement of financial position.
Yep.
Our cash reserves look exceedingly healthy, but of that, we have over 6 million of the, well, the 5.8 million of the harbor deepening money is still with us. We do have to find a better place to store that money until something happens to it, other than just a straight checking account. Our accounts receivable regular are at 352,000, and we are at 95.6% of all open AR is either current or 1 to 30 days. The accounts receivable wind turbine project is at $926,000. We expect a fairly good inflow of cash probably next week, near the end of next week, which will be a lot of the Vestas money coming through. Our current liabilities, if we look down at the bottom, we have our New York State retirement, our all project, and our regular accounts payable. The biggest accounts payable goes to the top three, which account for almost $600,000 of that is for the wind turbine project. Auburn Crane, OMLC, and some of the Willatas will go to, I think they do, yeah. So of that, most of it will be paid off very quickly. We are also hoping with the next influx of cash from the wind turbine project that we can cut the New York State retirement bill in half. So that is our goal, second, third week in August. Any questions on the statement of financial position?
Patty, the monthly maintenance fees for Beat Transit. I'm trying to remember why it's as high as it is. Is there something there that liability we had a few years back that we carried forward?
No, we pay them about $4,200 a month for maintenance on that whole system. And unfortunately, they are gracious enough not to come after us for the money, and with other things that we have that are more pressing, we have unfortunately allowed that to get way too big.
Is that system, are we able to provide or have information that we can pull from that we could use on, I don't know, number of vehicles coming from a certain area? Is there any way we can do that from that, or is that just by
type of vehicle?
Type of vehicle.
It's type of vehicle.
That's it.
That's it.
There's no card reader or license plate reader or anything like that that
No.
would allow that.
The only thing we could do, I think, and I know we don't right now have the capability, we would have to go back and ask them how to pull that information, is if people use commuter cards. We would be able to say 30% of the commuter cards come from this area or that area, because we do have people's home addresses on file.
Thanks.
But that, the e-transit system gives us the monthly bridge report.
Right.
Okay, if we move on to the budget to actual, I will start with Chris's question. The fuel sales are at $107,000 year-to-date actual, which is $44,000 above what we budgeted, which is still much stronger than we had thought we would see in traffic. A lot of it being the FBO traffic, the GA side. And then if you go down to the fuel sale expense, we have purchased more than we anticipated, which was part of the problem to meet the demand that we see up above. The other thing that's happened is we're paying, what is it, Stephanie, $6 to $7 a gallon for fuel?
It's over about $6.
Yeah, so we're paying $6 a gallon, and if we buy the last Ascent fuel delivery was 40,000 gallons, I believe?
No,
No, it was $40,000.
$40,000. We only get an 8,000 gallon delivery.
Mhm.
And the delivery before that was $62,000.
For the same amount of fuel.
So we're,
Wow.
the fuel prices have just dramatically increased.
I was waiting for you to ask the question.
So do we charge enough to recover the cost of the fuel?
That's the one.
Yes.
How come we have such a gap between revenue and expense?
Because until the end of June, we were quoting fuel for SkyWest. And we were trying to bring down their inventory. So we were purchasing more fuel on our side. It's turning around. You'll see in July's, we have not purchased fuel for the Bridge and Port Authority. I do not believe we made any purchases in June.
I don't
So
think so.
it sounds to me as if we were to not only look at the dollars spent, also look at the fuel on hand and the value of the fuel on hand, that we'd still be ahead.
Yes,
It's a good statement. Yes.
yes.
Really, you're looking, it's the inventory. Once you sell the inventory off that, like Stephanie was saying, that'll change over time. And right now, we're just kind of in a glut of inventory between the two trucks.
Between the two
Two
trucks
trucks in the tank.
and the fuel tank,
So
we did not purchase any fuel in June. We have not purchased any fuel in July. And we've had a very good month this month of fuel sales for July so far.
So maybe
It's gonna-
not, maybe at the end of July, but certainly soon, at some point, it's gonna
It's going to flip over.
turn into cash.
yeah, I
instead
mean,
of-
it'll be more of a regular look. I
Right.
believe, like Stephanie said, that's once we get
They
that.
don't normally hold that inventory. Night inventory.
And it's-
Well, SkyWest used to hold a fair bit of the inventory also.
They did.
But they turned it over quick. You were turning it over.
Yes. And we were trying to fill the tank so that SkyWest wouldn't put more fuel in before they left. So we did have extra fuel purchases as SkyWest was not refilling the tank.
It's turning around.
Well, I may need to ask again in 60
Sure.
days,
Well,
but
I'm just wondering if we bought the inventory at this level, and the price of gas is doing this, it's still gonna be okay.
Price of gas,
Jet fuel may be different
No.
than what I'm talking about at the pump.
no, I do not change the fuel price until we get a new fuel load.
Okay.
So
Right.
It's based upon what we have in the tank, what we pay for in the tank is how I price it. I did Tuesdays, we get the weekly fuel price, or I get the weekly fuel price. I compared it to the 4 local airports. We are still middle of the road as far as our retail price, and we are still making a profit on this. They are in the same boat as we are. They pretty much do the same thing. If they buy it at $6 a gallon, they're not going to sell it at $5 a gallon because the price goes down. They're just like we are.
That's good, you know. You don't want to be way above the competition.
We are, of the 4 airports that I compare with, we are dead center.
Sure.
We have 2 higher than us, 2 lower than us.
Good. That answers my question.
Very good. Our bridge revenue, we're starting to get much closer to what we budgeted. We still have the low side for what we had in April. But we have indeed come a long way with our bridge revenue. Our parking income is more than we budgeted, which is good. And our industrial park, we have one of our renters, our tenants who left the park, gave us a check to pay the balance of what was due. They dated the check July 13th. So we were not able to cash that check until just the other week. So that will even this out quite a bit next month, because we'll have been able to deposit the money. The wind turbine has come in very strong. We invoiced much more than I had budgeted that we would invoice in May and June. We're still on the balance sheet side waiting for that money to come in, but we have indeed invoiced for it. Everything else we've been able to keep pretty well at or below budget, which is fantastic so far this year. You'll notice under wind turbine, there is no budget for maintenance expense. We never broke it out. So it looks like we're really above budget, but we're not. We're holding our own with the expenses.
Is that mostly cranes and?
We have some welding. We had some fuel that we had to purchase for the cranes and the other equipment.
When we get reimbursed for that crane fuel, so it shows as an expense, but it also comes back as, I believe,
It's
part of the revenue.
It's part of the revenue side, yes.
It just hasn't shown up there yet.
Right.
Right,
Well,
correct.
our revenue is at 1.8 year to
Okay.
date for the project, so we're solid right now for the project.
Good.
Are there any questions about the budget to actual?
Sam, do you have any more?
The reimbursements from the Chrissy Act,
Mm-hmm. The Chrissy is done. We are now starting the ARPA, which is our final, what do they call it? Rehab grant, revitalization grant.
Revitalization.
but on the Chrissy, isn't there additional expenses that will show up over and above any reimbursement from that grant?
Yes, there are many expenses that under the CRRSA and the ARPA, we are not allowed to be reimbursed for. The original CARES Act allowed us repairs and maintenance for vehicles and everything else. That was stripped with the CRRSA and the ARPA. And we're not allowed to put in for grant monies that we have paid. Our portion of the grant money, the CARES Act allowed us to get reimbursed for some of that. We're not allowed any longer to get reimbursed because we are getting federal money for a portion of it. we can't get the other portion of it. So there are a number of things that have disappeared from reimbursement.
And the grants were linear so that you had to clear out one or the other. But when you look at the logic of it, you go, geez, why couldn't we have saved some of the CARES Act? You know, and managed them all through the time, but you had to finish one, so we're just moving on to, we're on the third version of that support, that grant support.
So Chrissy is basically pork.
No, CRRSA was airport.
We have the Chrissy grant, which is for that equipment, which is all pulled. That's why, yeah, CR.
Well,
Or CRRSA.
I'm trying to figure out, when I look back at the construction in progress, the top 4 projects, why does it appear that the most amount is larger than it was last month? I thought we were done with it.
First, we had to consider the the payment to the FAA. And we have what we thought, quite incorrectly, from what I gather now, is we were under the assumption that Baseline King had been paid off, that the invoice that we have on the books that wasn't paid fully, we were under the impression that was the final invoice. We received a payment application from Baseline King last week for another $34,000.
This is on top of the,
100, well, it was 218, of which we paid out 160. And there is 135,000 to completion, which we were not aware of. We will get most of that reimbursed. Very little of that will be our money.
but first we have to pay for it. So there's an additional 135,000 for that project before the FAA will even sign off on it? Is that,
We pay the contractor.
so
It
we just,
depends if there's no other work to be done. It could be done with less.
seems like this is never ending. So I'm trying to figure out, I thought we paid 40, whatever it was. That was it.
That's a separate thing from what we're talking about. You mean, when we talk the extra,
Yes.
that was with the FAA operations, part of that to inspect and verify and approve the operational part of the malls. That was a separate agreement with the FAA operations. What we're talking about is the actual construction project.
Okay. But somewhere in all the working that was done, there's an invoice that didn't get to us.
The newest invoice we did not realize was actually still to come. And the payment application explained further that there is more to come, depending, I believe, on what the FAA says.
So what happened?
If the FAA, when they do their final inspection, what things changed again, and Baseline King has to make those changes, then of course there's an additional cost from Baseline King. I still believe that it's more of an FAA interagency issue because the project was done to spec, and when the inspection started, this is where the problems happened. The tech ops side came in and said, well, we don't like it this way, it needs to be changed to this before we'll approve it. Even though this branch of the FAA designed it and it was built to this design, the other branch of the FAA that maintains it said no.
Right, I get that, but this is just what it appears to me, is that now there's an additional invoice out there, Baseline King that it sounds like we didn't know was out there.
We didn't expect it, no.
So what I'm asking is, how did that happen?
Do not know, it came through McFarland Johnson last,
But,
not last week.
no, it came in on Monday. And I have not, the accounting office has not yet seen it. I saw it when it came in on Monday. And I had no idea there was another invoice too.
So are they Baseline King talking to you about?
No. Now, this,
So the question is, why not?
McFarland Johnson is our project manager,
Right.
and it all goes through them. I do not get
So
a bill.
who's dropped the ball on this? McFarland Johnson or Baseline King?
I don't think Baseline King, well, if they did not bill when they were supposed to bill, then it would have been Baseline King, but that would go to McFarland Johnson to approve all of the bills before they came to us.
McFarland Johnson approves all the payment applications. Last payment application that I saw was
Number 5.
number 5. And then they haven't been coming to me, they've been coming to Stephanie. So she signs
Okay.
off on them based on McFarland Johnson's recommendation. But when you look at payment number 6, what I thought was supposed to be, we withheld money. I thought that was, without seeing it, I just assumed, and Patty's been telling you that we only have one more payment to go. But when you read a payment application from 6, that's not the case at all.
Okay, so if I may, when we meet again, whatever our next meeting is, I'd like staff to find out what the hell happened,
We're working on that, yes.
okay? Because it seems, again, to me, like all of a sudden we have to pay an additional amount that I certainly didn't anticipate. I don't like surprises like that when it's that amount of money. So I want to know what happened.
I'm working with McFarland Johnson on that right now.
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Thank you.
It seems to me that sometimes our expectations don't jive with the vendor's expectations. And, if you called them up and said, is this it? And they say, oh, no, there's one more. So that's not always as if anybody's trying to cheat you.
Right.
Oh, no.
Anything of
No.
that nature. It's just that we didn't know.
But for your expectation, we told you that Patty did, and we've been, I think, through 2 finance, that all we owed was this amount out of that last payment.
Yes.
This is, somebody said, and I can't find any paperwork that says, and usually with a payment app, you can read the numbers. What I see, I can't figure out where that number came from and who said that's all we owe. Usually that would show up in a payment application saying final percentage goes back to, and we've been telling you that. So somewhere we got the wrong impression about where, and I will take some of the blame for that because I didn't really go back and understand. I figured I'd see a payment 5 that said we've paid this amount, and the bottom would say the number that Patty was telling you, and that's not the case at all.
Yeah.
So McFarland has always been very good about that. So I want to understand from them why we were told to withhold. We were supposed to owe them, according to the
218.
number
Sure.
5 payment, 219, and somehow we only did a partial payment, which doesn't, from my experience, that partial payment should be reflected in that payment app. You just don't go on somebody just saying, whether it's an email or whatever, withhold this amount, because that's not how you close out a project.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
we're looking into that, but to be honest with you, I know how that works, but probably should have looked at that maybe a month and a half ago, or when that app came in, or the payment app, because they're pretty, when you see them, you understand all of that. But so I had to ask Patty when I saw that, how come that, and there's no record of a number that we were giving you.
Sure.
And I assumed that it was on a payment app.
So there may not be any than that.
Right.
But
But it's just that it's a
Yeah.
surprise. We were
No, and we give you have your expectations from the number we give you.
Sure.
And then when we come back and it's one thing to say it's lower, then you go, oh,
That'd be
but
great.
the other
Yeah,
thing,
then you're
or
pretty smart.
if it's a couple, if it's in the ballpark, okay, fine, but when it's this much,
Yeah.
You gotta wonder, how does that happen? And I totally understand your concern.
And how much is the local portion on this program?
2.5,
2.5%.
2.5 for us and 2.5 for the state, so
So
595, 2.5.
So
and 2.5.
97.5% of this is going to come out in the wash.
Yes,
Correct.
it all does come back. We just have to pay it first.
That's right.
And that's where the surprise hurts because
I know how painful that actually can be.
we were looking at a couple of other projects that we have to do this summer.
Sure.
And that was just such a surprise because we're going to have to
Put off.
put off a couple of things and then ask for consideration from a couple of people. Can we pay over time?
Yep.
Because now we have this to pay and this has to be paid in a lump sum.
Yeah.
I can't say, can I pay you $50,000 here and next month and the month after?
And when it gets down to working capital,
Absolutely.
if we had reserves in working capital, that a lot of that would go away and the time frame of getting money back. A lot of times, well, the latest one we had one where, well, the one, the 42,000. Just we held, hoping that we'd get something, and if knowing what I know, we'd have to worry. We just would have paid it and dealt with it, and then get our money back.
Mhm. Any other questions?
No, I'm good.
David?
It's just going to push back sometimes.
We have finished a review of RFQs for a new insurance broker. And do we have to present that to the board or just let the board know?
We did an RFQ and we got 7 responses.
We got 7 responses for people who wanted to hold our insurance. What we decided we wanted to do is we have currently 5 insurance brokers. So you have to know where all the shells are to know who to call when
Yes.
something happens. We decided we'd take a chance and move everything to one broker. So there's only one person you call and they take care of anything.
Yeah, but of the 7, can they all do everything that we have? Because we're so varied.
A couple did not come through. We dismissed 4 right away because they didn't appear or they didn't explain that they had the experience, the breadth of experience we needed.
Right.
And they were kind of, I don't want to use, I'll use the word outliers, but when you compare them to others, you can see that the 4 didn't bring what the others had. So we got it down to 3 that we go, okay, this is more substantial of what the RFQ was looking for. So
Mhm.
if they were all similar, then it'd probably be a little more difficult. But
Difficult.
you could see 3 of them stood out compared to the others. That isn't to say that the other 4 couldn't do it.
Yep.
But when you looked at the information, we were more assured of the services and things that they could provide.
Mhm.
So I think we just have to explain that to the board at the board meeting.
And do a resolution.
Do we need a resolution for that?
Are we changing?
Yes.
Then we-
Well, we have, this broker has some of our insurance. They're now going to get it all.
It should come before the board.
All right.
Is it cheaper?
We will.
It should not be any more, but what we're also hoping to save are some of the finance fees.
Oh,
Because we won't be paying finance fees to numerous different bodies. It'll
Right.
all be lumped into one broker. So we're hoping that it would likely be more in the broker fees or finance fees where we would save our money.
I wouldn't be surprised if in the long run, the broker would find some ways that you didn't have to have the same coverage twice.
Exactly, yeah. And I don't know, I know in two instances with both the bridge and the airport, there are not that many people who actually insure
Absolutely.
the actual carriers.
Yeah.
So we know that we don't have a large pool from which to choose, but your straight crime, your cyber, your property, buildings, there might be something that we can do with those as they delve into it.
Sure. Very good.
Are we doing anything else?
Is there any other business
No,
to?
Mr. Chairman.
I'm good,
Anything
Chris,
we need
thank
to
you.
do? In that case,
I would move to adjourn.
And I'll second.
all in favor? Aye.
That's my fault.
That's fine.
That's what it means.